Hey, it's Tpok. I am playing True Remembrance. This is a story about little occurrences in a little town. When they met in 8th Street, a story had already begun. So, let's try this out. Start the beginning of the tale. I'm gonna get comfortable. Don't know how long I'm gonna play this. Stories have two great truths. First, they begin in many ways that are all more or less the same. Second, they all have an end. Fortunately, all great truths are lies, so there's the stuff that happens in between. But all stories must have a beginning, so this story begins with me snapping awake to the rhythmic clickety-clack of the trolley. I felt like I'd been asleep for a long time. My mind swirled with the same veil of fog that my eyes were trying in vain to blink away. So I shrugged and looked out the window. I saw streets and storefronts and torn blankets of snow draping chimney tops, the sights and sounds of the town I'd call home fleeting by like the scattered fragments of a dream. No, scattered toys cast aside by some less than charitable hand. That was more like it. And who, I wondered idly, would stoop to pick them up and put them back in their places. A fitting reverie for a town so small and so white and crusted that it might as well have been a movie set. There was a church on 5th Street at the very center of town. Its steeple jutted high up towards low and heavy clouds laden with snow. On that steeple was a clock whose hands were stopped at 3 o'clock, stuck in frozen time. That was the air this town gave off, framed by the stilled hands of the only prominent clock within city limits. And it seemed to me that, actually, it was not the clock but the town itself that was out of order. It made things a lot easier to accept if you thought about them that way. Yeah, nothing strange about that at all. Oh, this must be the trolley. Pretty fancy looking. With its no handrails, I noticed that. No, handrails in the ceiling or anything. The trolley glided to a gentle halt, its brakes shuddering like the mincing footfalls of a woman with something infinitely fragile and precious in her arms. The doors folded open. The cabin inhaled. The wind skirled at my feet. I shivered at the cold, then stood up. My gray coat was draped on the seat next to me. I reached for it and put it on in one smooth motion. The station was just about abandoned when I stepped off. I strolled slowly through familiar streets. Here and there I saw storefronts, close-packed houses, flowers, blooming in frozen gardens. Blissful ignorance. 9 short blocks from the station, I turned right at the intersection. The road turned upward at my feet as if in response. And from atop the hill, a careworn edifice of wind-blasted stone and pocked mortar glared down at me. So that was where I was headed, probably. With my every step, the buildings grew sparser and sparser, as if they were afraid of my destination's long shadow. Soon enough, even the cobblestones had lost their courage and fled, leaving me to face a grove of trees by myself. No more paved roads from this point on, then. I could feel the soft loam clinging to my shoes with every footfall. So, that was me, I guess. I didn't acknowledge it at first because I thought it was just some guy I was passing by, but then I realized it was the same guy. I stopped at a stone wall with an iron gate. Both it and the building had seen better days. And when the freezing winds whipped through the fallen brick and rusted metal, the entire place could be heard to scream. Okay then. The pompous gate shuddered when the air tore at its broken hinges. Soon it would fall unto earth and dreamless slumber. When, not if, just a matter of time. I just pushed my way past, it's snowing, that complaining scrap of iron when snow started whispering from the ashen sky. There was someone standing at the doorway. A young girl, if my eyes did not deceive me. She was silent and prim, her straight back dusted by the wavering snow. My dog is barking, I don't know if you can hear that. She turned to face me as I drew near. She probably heard my approach. She's got blue eyes, and blue hair, and a blue tie. Super matching. I got my first good glimpse at her wan face past the gauzy white veil of cold that fell from the sky. I sighed inwardly and fished my hands out of my pockets. Hello there. My name is Blackiris, apparently. The girl just blinked slowly in surprise. You are welcome here. No one will hurt you. So come, dry your tears. But she did no such thing. She just kept staring up at me, tear after tear carving harsh paths down her soft pale face. My name is Blackiris. I'll make sure you get settled in, so be at ease. Oh, and should you wish to call me by some other name, go right ahead and do so. I won't mind. So, my honored guest, capitalized, if I may ask, what is your name? This was all strictly by the book. Well, it was until I asked her name. She shut her eyes tight and began to wipe her face clean. Her emotions were clumsy and halting. A brave gesture, although it did not at all stop the flow of tears from her eyes. La. Huh? My name, La. Her voice was high and warm, even as it quavered in cold and shock. I see. Very well. La. Right this way, please. It's too cold to be standing around outside after all. Okay. She nodded, and then she did the most astonishing thing. She came close, stood on tiptoe, and with such small hands began brushing the snow off my shoulders. Such a good girl. She left me with no choice but to do well for her sake. We walked into the old building side by side, and that is how our story really begins. Okay. Let's begin with a video. Okay then. Okay, nice intro. Now what? A picture of a small vase. The world shall groan with tears untold. Tomorrow's wings shall ne'er unfold. You know how they say that the songs of an age supposedly embody the spirit of its inhabitants? Well, such were the songs of our age. And for good reason. We'd seen no end to earthly tragedy. Even people in the prime of their youth were offering themselves in despair. Suicide had become by far the leading cause of all ages' mortality worldwide. As the phenomenon swept the globe, people began to call it by name. The medical community scoffed at first, hemmed and hawed, complaining about clinical depression and diagnosis criteria and something useless called DSM-V, and then finally gave in. That was years ago. By the present day, the term the dolor was firmly established in the medical lexicon, just as the term the plague had been in ages past. Our government, of course, mobilized every resource it could in order to study and hopefully counteract the dolor. They established this town, for instance. And because they established this town, I was able to make a living here, serving as a guide of sorts for newcomers. Specifically, I made sure they got settled in, and as I did so, I helped them forget, one by one, the horrors their eyes had seen. Yes, this town's and my only duty was to sever the ties of heartbreak and isolation that bound our guests, staining their souls, filled them with dolor. So, La is a guest, then. This was, after all, the so-called city where memories came to die. And I was, after all, a so-called Mnemonicide. Mnemonicide. That word bears a little explaining. As millions perished in the throes of the dolor, the medical community took its sweet time to pronounce a sentence that even a 5-year-old would have found obvious. Namely, that the etiology of the dolor was this crushing feeling of sadness and helplessness that left people with no other option but self-slaughter. A special conference of the top psychiatrists in the world was convened days after deliberation. They decided to make up some fancy names that meant nothing. They reasoned that the dolor ate away at the afflicted's mind the way that the rust ate away at metal. Psyche corrosion, they called it. Talk about fiddling away while Rome burns. Oh, there's one problem with that analogy. See, Nero didn't fiddle at all. He opened his palaces to the displaced and wrote far stricter fire codes post-haste. Whereas these psychiatrists, that's all they ever did, fiddle away. Well, we all died. Anyway, patients who had failed all of their methods of therapy were assigned to what was known as Mnemonicide protocol. They were brought to this town, and it was here that we mnemonicides cut away the ties binding our guests to the memories that had corroded their psyches. The thing was, not just anyone could become a mnemonicide. One had to have certain qualities and inborn talents before one could even embark on the path. To this day, I will never know whether I was blessed or cursed when it turned out that I had just those qualities, just those talents. People often pulled us aside, told us how sweet and seemly it was for us to do our duty for our country, how much they envied us, idiotic, patriotic drivel like that. None of it particularly impressed me. How can you explain to someone who will never understand that your every working day is a long fall into rapture and damnation? I have no idea. Sounds tough. Oh, Chapter 1 of A Town Where It Snows and the Story Begins. Okay. Nice. Well, next time I will learn about Law and Blackiris some more. Leave a like if you're interested in me continuing this, or a comment, or whatever you feel like. I like this so far. I like the atmosphere and the setting it's set up. I think it's going to be good, so yeah. Thanks for watching.